Has a game ever made you feel alone? There's this moment in Hollow Knight where you come across one of the few NPCs who has only helped and guided you throughout your journey. His name is Quirrell, and you find him sitting on the shore of the Blue Lake, staring out into the water. He tells you that here, he finally feels at peace, that he's seen all this kingdom has to offer, and in all its beauty and wonders, there's not a thing quite as intriguing as you, the player. A prompt then appears on your screen, and you sit with him, taking in the beauty of Hallownest one last time. There's no music, and not a sound aside from the quiet movement and soft drips of the water. Although you sit here, in the company of a friend, a feeling sets in. It's peaceful, yet sad. The kingdom of Hallownest is vast in every respect. There's massive cities, magnificent gardens, and dozens of NPCs that range from helping you to trying to kill you. And even though this kingdom is so dense and full of wonder, you never cease to feel lonely. When it comes to games, loneliness isn't an emotion you often think of. To be alone is to have no company, to have nobody to talk to or share a moment with. Games by nature have always been social, cooperative, and of course, competitive. Even the earliest games we know of were played among several players. In the Persian Gulf, there was a game discovered that seems to have been played by the Assyrians more than 5,000 years ago. It was called the Royal Game of Ur, and was a kind of board game where players would move pieces around. The first ever checkers. It's clear that people have always enjoyed playing games, some for competition, some for basic entertainment. Regardless of the reason, games are a core component of people's pastime. But you may be asking, what about single-player games? Those aren't social, and there's no one to compete with but yourself. And you'd be right. When you play a single-player game, you are indeed alone. But just being alone is different from being lonely. Loneliness implies a sense of melancholy, a somber tone, a sadness. Now, obviously, there's plenty of single-player games that aren't lonely at all. Hell, there are some multiplayer games that are more lonely than a single-player game like God of War or Doom. Point is, just because a game is single-player doesn't make it lonely. I mean, I'm not gonna break down while playing Solitaire, unless Solitaire really is that tough for you to play. Hey man, I don't know what you're going through. But some games do manage to create that emptiness inside of you, a discomfort that creeps in without warning. Yes, this lonely feeling can be gloomy, but I find that usually when a game makes me feel lonely, it's more of a peaceful loneliness than anything else. The world feels like it's suddenly stopped, like I've finally found the perfect escape. There's a reason Hallownest feels the way it does, why it has such a depressing atmosphere regardless of its many creatures. When you enter the kingdom for the first time, it's cold. The dark lighting and somber music make you feel isolated, like this place doesn't want you here. The first area you come across is literally called Dirtmouth, the Fading Town. It's full of houses, but so few people. As you venture deeper, you find bugs that look like you, but do nothing but try to kill you. They seem almost mindless, just a husk of someone who came before. It becomes clear that this kingdom was once a beautiful sanctuary filled with life, but things have changed. Hallownest is dead. In the year 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted in southern Italy, decimating flourishing cities like Herculaneum and the now famous Pompeii. A 10-mile cloud of ash and toxic gas flooded the skies and quickly spread to nearby cities. Ash and volcanic rocks poured down onto Pompeii, sending its people into a horrified frenzy as they had no idea what was happening. The gas and burning ash engulfed Pompeii, suffocating every last person alive and burying the whole city in mere minutes. Few witness accounts exist of the eruption, and much of the details we know of are from letters written by Pliny the Younger, a boy who, only 17 at the time, survived the disaster along the Bay of Naples. The sights he wrote of are haunting. People running in terror, trying to escape their fate. Some stayed within their homes or underground cellars hoping to wait out the eruption. They would cover their heads with pillows, and some even prayed for death. And in the end, it took them. The immense amount of rock and ash embedded Pompeii into a calcified state, and the area was largely forgotten and left abandoned for years. When archaeologists discovered the remains of the city, they found the ash had coated buildings, objects, and even people. It hardened around the remains of their bodies, freezing them in time. Their final moments are as clear to us as is the skies above them, all these years later. Post-apocalyptic settings for games is a very common trope, and for good reason. It's a setting so drastically different compared to our everyday lives. It can bring out that deep, dark fear inside all of us. The fear of losing everything. These ruined, long-dead places were once thriving with people just like you and I, enjoying life and all its wonders. But some kind of world-ending tragedy took that all away. We have a natural curiosity to investigate and uncover just what kind of disaster led to these dead worlds, and who exactly those people were. These games utilize that desire, allowing you to explore an abandoned, decayed world, letting you see those empty bedrooms and vacant streets. It's often creepy to see abandoned buildings and ruins like this, as they're usually associated with death and tragedy. But more than anything, I find that games with dead worlds are serene, peaceful, yet lonely all the same. Breath of the Wild is one of those games that you can just get lost in. At the start of the game, Link wakes up with zero memory of who or where he is. It's revealed that you've been asleep for 100 years, and that there was a massive battle you barely survived. Hyrule has been all but destroyed by Ganon, scattering its people and leaving many of its towns in ruin. As this is an open-world game, you can journey across all of Hyrule and see these ruins up close, the remnants of a time long ago. Many of these places are barely recognizable, with nothing more than a faint shadow of what they used to be. Who used to live here? But some are more clear to us. My favorite abandoned place in Breath of the Wild is Fort Hateno. It's a quiet yet evocative scene. Dead guardians scatter an open, empty field. A large castle-like wall guarding the pathway is just barely standing. These guardians are calcified, frozen in time during their final moments. It can be assumed that there was a battle here, one that was nearly lost. The people of Hyrule appear to have been fleeing from the Guardians, hoping to make it to Hateno Village for refuge. Those that could still fight chose to make a final stand against the Horde here, at the fortress. The various craters and splintered trees were no doubt from the Guardians' deadly cannons. We can even see some of these Guardians were stopped as they were scaling the wall. These people were saved mere moments from tragedy. Throughout your adventure, you're left by yourself more than any other Zelda game. Prior games had plenty of NPCs and towns to visit, each brimming with life. And while Breath of the Wild has towns as well, they're so few and far between, disconnected by these vast arrays of empty landscapes and demolished buildings. 90% of my playtime was spent alone, exploring these ruins, and this is intentional. There's a reason the game has you spend so much time out in its environments. It's in the name of the game. Breath of the Wild is about its wilds. It's about nature becoming the dominant force in Hyrule. Each and every abandoned place is overgrown, slowly being taken back by nature's resolve. Civilization suggests a disregard for the natural world, industry overtaking the wild. These themes are seen constantly throughout fiction. The ancient Fangorn forest and the Ent's righteous anger towards Saruman and his army of orcs. Rainworld's harsh environment and various creatures continuing to thrive even through the deadly downpour. And of course, Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke and its messages of humanity's greed and desire for expansion, indifferent to the life that already resides in the wild. Princess Mononoke is said to be an inspiration for the Hyrule that we see in Breath of the Wild, and it's very clear. The lack of civilization, the lack of people, allows these themes of the enduring natural world to thrive. But in the wake of these empty landscapes is a deep loneliness. Not only does this overgrown version of Hyrule leave you feeling alone, but so too does your lack of memory. Much of the game is spent uncovering just what happened all those years ago, and learning of those who were lost, the friends that you once cherished. As you discover different areas, your memory begins to restore itself, and the realization of everything you've lost becomes unclouded. You were the lone survivor. That battle at Fort Hateno was a tragedy that you weren't able to stop. Scenes just like this happened all across the kingdom, and many left nothing but rubble in their wake. Survivor's guilt is something very few people will ever experience, and it has to be one of the loneliest feelings imaginable. While each of the relationships and connections you once had have been severed, time has continued moving, and life has kept growing. During your journey, you meet new people and form new bonds. The sorrow of seeing these forgotten, displaced towns is softened as new life begins to take hold. These guardians are coated in moss, the wall covered in vines. New towns are being built, and many people these days don't even remember a time before the calamity. Breath of the Wild is a broken land, still suffering from its wounds even after 100 long years. But life always finds a way. It's a cycle. Many died during the battle 100 years ago, but there were survivors. Towns were lost, people's livelihoods were taken from them, but new life has begun to emerge. This is why, even though we find ourselves alone, exploring these remnants of a bygone era, I find this version of Hyrule to be more beautiful than any that came before. It's a world that suffered a terrible death, but with time and the strength of the enduring wild, it has restored itself to become even stronger than before. And we don't have to avenge it by ourselves. If Hyrule itself is alive, then are we really ever alone? But these dead worlds don't always have a happy ending. What is it like when a world is on the brink of death? That's just barely holding on. Shadow of the Colossus is like a mirror to Breath of the Wild. This world appears to be dead. There's not a soul to be found but you and the horse you ride upon. But rather than a world long abandoned, slowly being revived, this land has been dying for what seems like eons, with the only life left being the titular colossi scattered across this wasteland. They, much like in Breath of the Wild, are ruins of a long-forgotten time, but still alive, still breathing. You come here to this far-off land in hopes of reviving a loved one, someone who was taken from you too soon. Shadow of the Colossus is a story of grief, and the inability to let someone go. It's a representation of how hard it can be to live on without someone you love, and the lengths a person might go to keep them from leaving. For the boy you play as, that grief brought him here. You're offered a chance to save her soul by defeating each and every colossus within this ruined land. To save one soul, you're forced to take many. These massive creatures of stone and flesh are nothing more than an obstacle at first, but the realization that you are single-handedly putting to rest the only remaining life here makes you rethink your actions. Maybe these titans are more than just monsters. From your desire to not be alone, you're killing the only company this land offers. You are the reason this world will die. When seeing these gargantuan colossi, I can't help but think of that feeling you get when you look out into space, or when you look up at an impossibly tall building. Seeing the scale of something so far beyond you, beyond your reach, makes you feel so small, so insignificant. I wonder what it might actually be like to witness an impossibly huge monster looking down on me. An expanse so vast, or a creature so big, that you couldn't possibly relate to it, connect with it. You'd feel so detached, like you can't possibly coexist. I mean, you could never become friends with a monster, right? The colossi are not hostile. They only defend themselves when you attack them. It makes the act of slaying these titans so much more difficult. In your own selfishness, your drive to rid yourself of loneliness, you become blinded to the lives you take. Maybe these towering beasts are just as alone as you are. Their world now nothing but rubble. In Breath of the Wild, you can find beauty in nature's regenerative quality. It's tranquil. Even without any people, you can find wild animals and Koroks anywhere you go. But the world of Shadow of the Colossus is barren. The remains here have been rotting for far longer than a mere 100 years. It really makes you wonder if it will ever see life again. The colossi are enormous, and yet even they seem small when compared to the long stretches of land you travel across. These bridges and structures are so immense that there must have been thousands upon thousands who lived here. But now, it's a ghost town. Each colossus you defeat becomes a part of that ghost town. Just another pile of rock and dust. When a world dies, its people, its life vanishes. All that's left is the lingering sign of a life once lived. It's one thing to be entirely isolated, with nothing but the wilds before you. But when you stand within the corpse of a once thriving world, it feels like you can connect with those who came before you. But the reality is, you will never truly feel their presence. If that's not lonely, what is? games have the amazing potential to make the player feel. And there's a reason for this. They're different from any other medium. You aren't simply a spectator looking through a fourth wall, but rather you're behind that fourth wall, a part of that world. Interactability is something unique to a game, the level of control you have over what happens. You don't just experience a game from the first-person perspective. You are the first person. It's this immersion that lets us feel far stronger about a game than something like a book or film. There's many facets of immersion for games. It could be creating a deep, intricate world that feels like it's been here long before you came along, or a narrative with complex, real characters. When a game immerses you, when you become lost in its atmosphere, a feeling creeps in. For some games, it may be intentional. For others, maybe not. But sometimes that feeling can turn from a deep immersion to an otherworldly isolation. In Jedi Fallen Order, you take on the role of Cal Kestis. From the outset, Cal's life doesn't appear particularly lonely. Working as a scrapper on the junk planet Bracca has led to him making a good friend, Prauf, who he works very closely with. It's not until an accident happens that nearly causes Prauf's death that the depths of Cal's fears and loneliness is revealed. Cal is a Jedi, and he's been in hiding since the events of Order 66 just 5 years prior. Cal lost everything during the Purge. His friends, his family, his way of life, and he blames himself for it. The true tragedy of it all is how this isolation seems to follow Cal everywhere he goes. The Empire is always on the hunt for survivors, and when they find you, you aren't the only one who will suffer. It feels like it's Cal's destiny to be isolated, never again allowed to be who he is, forever an outcast. What makes us connect even more with Cal are the flashbacks throughout the game. Each time we unlock a new ability, it's framed as Cal remembering a part of his training, and so we are flung into the past, playing as a young Cal training with his master. His relationship with his master, and even the clones, is front and center. Just another reminder of what he's lost. Cal continues running from the Empire, doing anything he can to fight back. But his past, his guilt, is always weighing down on him. The final of these flashbacks happens on Dathomir, but this time, we witness how it all happened. How Cal lost everything. It begins as any other training sequence, using your Force abilities to make it to your master's position, only for things to take a dark turn.
We will begin with physical preparation. First, though, we have orders. Bracca is secure. We move out from Maigito shortly.
Yes!
You must...
Master, are you okay?
Something is...
No! No! What's happening? Why did the commander just...
Padawan, something terrible is happening. The clones have betrayed us. There are no answers to your questions. Not yet. We need to get off this ship. Quickly. Get to the escape pods. Use the maintenance halls. We trained for this. Do you remember?
Yes, Master. What about you?
I will create a distraction and meet you. If I am not there when you arrive, depart without me. I will find you on Bracca. Do you understand?
Yes, Master.
They're coming. I will seal the blast doors, but if any cross your path, do not hesitate. Go. And may the Force be with you.
The audience understands exactly what is happening here, but Cal is faced with nothing but confusion and fear. They attempt to escape the ship, but just before they can get to the escape pod, Jaro Tapal, Cal's master, is killed trying to protect him.
Cal. I overloaded the ship's reactors. The explosion will mask our escape. war is not over, my Padawan. Hold the line. Wait for the Jedi Council signal. Remember, trust only in the Force.
Yes, Master.
Scenes of Order 66, just like this one, happened all over the galaxy. Cal didn't just lose a master that day, he lost everything he knew. Throughout the story, we see him struggle with that survivor's guilt, the pain and utter loneliness that only loss can create. From when he first encounters that starfighter, to his confrontations against the Inquisitors. After this final flashback, Cal is quite literally confronted with a ghost of his past, a kind of force vision of his master. He still believes that his master's blood is on his hands, that he could have been stronger that day, and that guilt reaches a breaking point.
Yes, my blood is on your hands, apprentice. You are a failure, a weakling, a traitor. You are no Jedi! No!
He fractures his lightsaber, the only thing his master left him. In Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan tells Anakin,
Yes, Master. This weapon is your life.
maybe it was here that Cal killed his master. Not as a little boy too weak and afraid to do anything, but as a man so utterly broken and forlorn that he doesn't even believe in himself. He can't. Not after everything he's lost. When Cal goes to Ilum to retrieve a new Kyber crystal and repair his saber, a flicker of hope returns as he finally stumbles towards the crystal. This is it, the answer to his pain, a reminder that the Jedi aren't really gone, that his master didn't die in vain. And then, just as he reaches out and grabs it, it breaks, shatters in two right in the palm of his hand. That flicker of hope within Cal burns out as he realizes he's failed. His master is now truly dead, and he's failed as a Padawan. What's the point in struggling against such insurmountable odds? What's the point in fighting when you're all by yourself? And it's that very moment that it dawns on Cal, this whole time, through every up and down, every chest and stim canister, that he hasn't been alone. That failure is not the end.
It is a necessary part of the path. Hope will always survive in those who continue to fight. Like you, BD-1.
Cal had been so burdened with what he'd lost that he was blind to what he had gained. His new master, his new family. His newly built lightsaber reflects this, a combination of both his master's new and old. This is why I love this game so deeply. It asks the question, how can someone move on after losing everything? The truth is, you don't. But that doesn't mean your past has to be a burden. In Cal's case, it becomes a lesson. Even in our darkest moments, when we feel most alone, there's always someone there for us. Maybe they've just been sitting on your shoulder this entire time. Minecraft isn't usually the first game you'd think of when you hear the word immersive. From its voxel-based graphics to the near non-existent story, Minecraft feels like one of the most gamey games out there. And yet, anyone who's played it knows just how haunting playing by yourself can be. Minecraft in single player takes the idea of isolation in a more literal sense. Without the sounds and laughs playing with friends, the game becomes hauntingly quiet. Every footstep made, every block placed, even the tactile sounds of the menus are as clear and memorable as the blocky skies above. The only other thing breaking this empty silence are the wistful piano tunes playing in the background. But even they fade out sooner or later, leaving you once again alone with your thoughts. It's these quiet moments when playing where you begin to feel dreadfully isolated, like you're stranded in a strange land no one will ever know of, and technically, you are. When you create a new world, you are creating an entirely new site that nobody has ever seen before, a world you have entirely to yourself. It's this personal experience that makes a solo world so lonely. But there's a darker side to Minecraft, something few players have ever experienced, but everyone knows about. In a game where you play by yourself, why do you sometimes not feel alone? July 9th, 2010. Lately I've been hearing this strange sound while near a cave, then footsteps, then more. What is it? July 13th, 2010. So I had just generated my first snow map and was happy. I went around looking for a cavey area to set up my base, and I found a bit of exposed stone. I erased 2 blocks, and sure enough, there was a pitch-dark hole in their place. Before I took a step, however, this creepy chord played. It was a sort of drawn-out minor chord with string instruments, like the sort that foreshadow events in horror movies. I was frozen with momentary fear, and then looked in my inventory. There was now a rose in my first slot. I sealed up the cave. These posts were made on the Minecraft forum website shortly after the update of version 1.0.3. Strange noises were being heard deep within caves, confusing and frightening players, but these weren't just normal ambient noises. They were unnatural, deep guttural roars of what sounds like machinery, and distant screeching echoes. All of these noises can be heard while playing in single player, all by yourself. August 31st, 2010. An anonymous user made a post on 4chan documenting his experience while playing. I had recently spawned a new world in single-player Minecraft. Everything was normal at first as I began chopping down trees and crafting a workbench. I noticed something move amongst the dense fog. I have a very slow computer, so I have to play with tiny render distance. I thought it was a cow, so I pursued it, hoping to grab some hides for armor. It wasn't a cow, though. Looking back at me was another character, with the default skin, but his eyes were empty. I saw no name pop up, and I double-checked to make sure I wasn't in multiplayer mode. He didn't stay long. He looked at me and quickly ran into the fog. I pursued out of curiosity, but he was gone. The only image attached to this post was of the user looking at a small hill, with the faint outline of a figure standing in the fog. The old Minecraft versions have become synonymous with the word creepy. The low view distance and fog covering your screen, the pitch darkness of the nighttime, the vast, barren world, and of course the now infamous Legend of Herobrine. Everything about the game was oddly unsettling. Back then, there was no Minecraft Live, no trailers announcing new updates. Many new features were added without players even knowing. It all fed into that fear of the unknown. What if there really is someone here, watching me? That strange loneliness of a solo world became a good feeling when opposed to this eerie sense that someone else is here with you. You just don't know where. While much of these aspects have lightened over the years, that feeling still lingers. I've been playing on my own single-player world recently, and there have been moments where I swore I saw another player name, only to find nothing. This strange, lonely atmosphere is present regardless of the version. But I don't think it was ever Minecraft's intention to feel so lonely, to feel so isolating. Marcus Persson, better known as Notch, the creator of Minecraft, sold his small indie game passion project to Microsoft back in September of 2014. In doing so, it made him a billionaire, a $2.5 billion deal. Since then, he's taken to Twitter, voicing his feelings, his regrets. In the wake of his accomplishments, he's never felt more isolated. There's a sad irony knowing that in Notch's solitary success, millions like myself have been able to make friendships and bonds that we still have to this day. It makes sense why a single-player game would feel so lonely. There's no real people you're interacting with. NPCs can present some form of connection, in the same way we can relate to a character in a story, but there's no actual socializing going on. So on the contrary, shouldn't that then mean that a multiplayer game will always guarantee you that reassurance of company? There are plenty of multiplayer games in which you can in one moment be laughing and talking with friends, and in the next find yourself completely alone, the only one left.
Complete the mission. You're the only one left.
But this is an intentional part of the game, and you always end up back with other players. So what happens when there are no players to come back to? What happens when a game dies? The night of April 15th, 2010 marked the day the Halo 2 online servers for Xbox Live were shut down, ending the nearly 6-year-long life of one of the biggest and most influential shooters ever made. But a few players realized that they hadn't been disconnected from the servers yet, even after midnight had passed. They figured as long as they stayed connected, they could continue playing. These 14 players prolonged the life of Halo 2 for nearly a whole extra month. Slowly but surely they began dropping one by one, some from power outages, some deliberately, all until a final player was left. On May 10th, 2010 at 4:15 a.m., almost a month after Microsoft cut support, Agent Windex was forcefully booted offline, leaving Apache Enforcer as the lone survivor. For just under 22 hours, Apache was the only one left, keeping Halo 2 alive. Finally, on May 11th at 1:58 a.m., he was booted offline as well, bringing an end to Halo 2 and its multiplayer. These final 14 players have since been named the Noble 14, a fitting title for a truly dedicated group of gamers. When simply asked the question, why, Apache said this: "I wanted to play with everybody, you know? Especially, it's not like, oh, we'll play next week. Well, there is no next week." Those final 22 hours must have been a strange experience. To truly be the only player still online in a game is perhaps the loneliest you could be playing a game. On the night Microsoft ended support, there were almost 70,000 concurrent players online, and just a month later, Apache was the only one left. In a game that relies on the interaction between so many players, when there's nobody left, is it really even a game anymore? It's the sad truth that all multiplayer games have a lifespan. Sooner or later, the servers will be shut down, and the game will become lost to time. Of course, there have been many games that have been revived even after their servers have been shut down or have become unplayable. From fan-driven projects like Plutonium for Black Ops 2, or the several Club Penguin remakes, to of course the official revival of Halo 2 with the Master Chief Collection. While these newer versions are absolutely still enjoyable, and may even be better than the originals in some ways, they just aren't authentic. They will never be what the originals were, never achieve the same player base and community that made them so iconic to begin with. However, some games have met their end without the intervention of the studio. Their servers are still running, but nobody is online. You can even see them for yourself. There are the obvious choices like the old Call of Duty or Battlefront games, where the official servers do still have players, but it's a very small amount and it can be near impossible to find an actual match. But what about a game that is truly vacant? One where we could experience the same thing Apache did all those years ago. There are thousands of games out there with a player count of 0. Many of these games are dead simply because of how bad they are, or they could just never take off in the way the developers had hoped. But I find it to be even more eerie if it's a game that is typically full of other players. Garry's Mod, or Gmod, has been one of the biggest games on PC for decades, and for good reason. What originated as just a mod for Half-Life 2 is now one of the biggest sandbox games, full of different game modes and servers to play on. This is important, as while the game is still incredibly active even today, it has tons of older servers that are completely empty. Exploring these empty servers just doesn't feel quite right, like there's something missing. There's a sort of peacefulness when you play a game like this, like you're living in a world you have all to yourself. It's almost like what a real dead world would be like, similar to that of Breath of the Wild or Shadow of the Colossus. It can make you feel even more isolated than even a game like Minecraft. In Minecraft, at least you can still play the game normally when you're alone. But here in Gmod, the lack of players means you can't play. It's just a deserted world, no longer with any purpose, just like Halo 2 in its final few hours. All you can do is simply exist here, in this vacant place. Seeing these dead games is disheartening. Knowing these platforms where so many memories and friendships began are now abandoned makes me wonder, will there be a day where games have become just a thing of the past? I hope that this isn't the case, and when the time comes that the games I grew up with are being shut down, I hope that I can keep them alive in the same way Apache and the Noble 14 did, even if it means I end up all by myself, in a world left completely abandoned. After sitting with Quirrell for as long or as short as you'd like, taking in the calming waters, you eventually leave the Blue Lake to continue your journey. But when fate brings you back to this lake of tears, Quirrell is nowhere to be seen. The only sign of him is his sword, stuck in the sand. After this, Quirrell can't be found anywhere else in the entire game. His previous dialogue hinted at his age, and how he felt like his time here was at its end. It's assumed Quirrell is now dead, with the only thing left to remember him being his blade. It's not often I connect with a game in such a way that it makes me feel so strongly about it. It's a testament to how fantastic some of these games are that they can create such a powerful atmosphere. Whether being terrified or feeling immense empathy for a character, a game that can make you feel isolated, feel alone, is a brilliant way to make an immersive and engaging game. For a while, the popularity of single-player games was called into question. People thought they were a dying breed of games, and that the new age of multiplayer games far outweighed any potential success of them. People criticized them, saying things like, "Why play a game by myself when I could just play with friends?" that just sounds lonely. Thankfully, single-player games have shown to still be some of the biggest games every year. Maybe that loneliness isn't always a bad thing. It allows for a single, solitary focus on the story or world being presented. Without the loud distraction of other players, being alone can be a peaceful, relaxing experience, whether the game is meant to be that way or not. Even multiplayer games have shown to have these calmer, quieter moments. That contrast makes those times spent with friends all the more memorable. People will constantly look for ways to escape the stress and chaos of the real world. And sometimes, isolating ourselves in a virtual one is the best way to do that. I think this can go for any kind of game. Loneliness doesn't have to be a depressing, somber feeling. Maybe we can find peace within it, and that it can help us appreciate the company of friends and family just a little bit more. Thank you so very much for watching. If you enjoyed, remember to leave a like and be sure to subscribe to see more of me. I recently made a new Discord server, so if you want to be a part of the community and get access to polls and frequent video updates, feel free to join. Link is in the description. As always, my name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.